Awesome. So now we have a fantastic, handsome guest with us today to help us dig into the spouse's perspective. That's you, honey bunny.
Oh, sorry.
This is Mr. Nicely. This is Jason East. This is my handsome husband, and he has been with me through all of the crying in the kitchen floor moments. He has been with me for all of the fancy steak dinners when I've celebrated being on top of the mountain. And he is definitely a huge part of my life. And I love him to pieces. But I'm going to be honest with y'all, and he'll be honest with you too. It has been a bit of a challenge in our relationship for me to be a real estate investor. And I think that's putting it very nicely. Don't you agree, babe?
Agreed.
So, Jason is here to really tell us what these dudes are thinking, or at least what he was thinking. So, very early on when we were dating, Jason has always lived in Georgia. I've always lived in Tennessee, especially when we were dating. We were married for a year before we moved in together. And we were on the phone a lot. We had a long distance relationship. And so we were on the phone just chit chatting until like 2 o'clock in the morning. You know how you do when you're newly in love and all that stuff. So he told me one day, he didn't tell me, he asked me, he was like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because I was in my 20s. You know, I was trying to figure out life. What do you want to be when you grow up? I said, I want to be an auctioneer. I want to be a real estate auctioneer. I go to auctions. I really like the way these guys like have control of the stage and everybody's paying attention to them and they make big money and like, I'm going to be an auctioneer. And he was like, it's not what I thought you were going to say at all. Okay, go to auction school. So I went to auction school. While I was at auction school, I realized that maybe I didn't want to be an auctioneer, but I did all the stuff and I got my auctioneer's license and then I got my own auction company. And then I decided, you know what? If I'm an auctioneer and I'm selling real estate at auction, I should know more about real estate investing. I'm going to go to real estate investing school. I'm going to join this local RIA group and I'm going to hang out with real estate investors. And I'm getting super excited about all of this. And I'm seeing all these people making all this money and they're speaking this whole different language. And I'm, you know, talking to him and I'm super excited about it. And I've definitely got my head in the clouds and my feet are not on the ground. And I am just, you know, we're going to be millionaires. I'm going to figure it out. And Jason was there to support my decisions, even though it scared the crap out of him. So Jason, that's where I want to start. And tell everybody, you know, it goes back to how you were raised and how I was raised. And why did it scare you? And where were you? Where was your mind here? Because I think a lot of these ladies are married to a similar version of you. Not as handsome as you, though. But they're married to some guys, and these women are in First Field and Fast. They're joining the Knox RIA. They're super excited. They're seeing me have success. They're seeing the other women in First Field and Fast have success. They're seeing all this, and they're saying, I can do this. God wouldn't have given me this goal and this dream if he didn't have the path for me. But when they get back home, they're hearing, and some of them are hearing their ex-husband say this in his voice that they can't do this. Some of them are hearing their boyfriends or their current husband saying this. So what's going on in the man's head? You're seeing me, they're seeing her go out and have all these great ideas. What's going on? Why was this a challenge?
So can you still hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So a couple of things here. Good morning or good afternoon or you know, whatever the case may be. Good day, I guess I will say. I guess depending on where you're at, it could actually be good night if there's people overseas. But anyway, so I want to say, the first thing I want to say is what I'm about to tell you is going to be, very open and honest. A lot of these things are not things looking back on them that I'm proud of either, the way I conducted myself, what I said, anything like that. But the other thing I want you to know is none of this was done intentionally. Okay, so I have had multiple people at a couple of the Alive events, and I won't call them out by name, but I appreciate their candor and honesty in, approaching somebody and tell them what they thought. But, we used to do this and tell this, and then we would end and we'd go on a break, right? And it always happened to be, right before lunch or right before break. I had people come up immediately afterwards and were like, are you aware that if, we might not be sitting here had she not forged forward? And so, things like that was a huge effect on me both then and now, because it's like, oh my gosh, what if that was the case? What if she had given up her dream, or she hadn't kept driving forward? And I was one of those forces, not the only one, but probably the loudest one in her life that were, either throwing up objections or things like that, or reasons why she should not push forward, or why she should give up, or why she should pivot and go another path.
Uh-oh, babe. Are you there? Hey. You hit mute. You've muted yourself.
Okay. It dropped me.
Pivoter.
It dropped me and I'm back. So you still got me? Okay. It's telling me that my internet connection is unstable. I'm not sure exactly what that means. Hang on. I'm going to try to plug this directly in instead of being on the Wi-Fi. All right, so now I'm hardwired in. Maybe that'll help. All right, so anyway, going back to some of the earlier conversations, now that I've had a chance to reflect on these, it really hit me hard after the fact, because again, like I said, this was not intentional. I don't think anybody would intentionally derail their partner or put them down. I mean, there are certain individuals that, get their kicks on controlling every aspect of somebody's lives, but I'm not one of those people. And, it was not done intentionally, but it still had a dramatic effect on me. So I went back and I started looking at, why did I feel this way? And why did I look at it this way? Rather than being that very encouraging person to push Whitney forward instead of holding her back. And I think a lot of it had to do with experiences, we have been in, the way we've been raised and things like that. So, let's kind of start there and look at some differences, right? So I was raised by, two very loving parents, but their career was both in the school system, right? So my mom was a teacher her entire career. My father started off as a teacher, later moved on to being an administrator. But if any of you are teachers or have teachers in your family or know teachers, personally, you'll know that, teachers have a very good retirement that they have to pay into. You'll joke with teachers and you think it's joking, and then you figure out it's reality. Between their retirement pay and Social Security, a teacher makes far more every month when they get paid after they're retired than when they're actually working, right? So you're paying in and you're doing that. And so because my parents paid into that, they saved on the side, but we never had a lot of money to invest. So what money they had to invest, we always put it in low risk type things. So anything that was uncertain or anything that, didn't provide kind of a calculated or set return, were kind of things that they looked down on, right? So a lot of that bled down to me and ultimately my sister as well is, we put extra funds and things in CDs and savings accounts and bonds and things that were safe. We didn't take a lot of risk. And outside of that, we weren't taught a lot of different ways in order to make money. So that was one catalyst that I immediately noticed, right? So, based on where your spouse is in their career, what they're accustomed to, how they were raised is probably going to affect how they look at you in your investing career and whether or not they actually, are not involved at all, are just like, hey, go do your thing. You either succeed or you fail. That's on you, go ahead. But obviously what we want is in the healthy relationship, in a place where Whitney and I didn't start, but we are now, is where we support each other, right? And that moves our relationship forward. It moves us as a career together in ventures where we're together forward. And it moves us as individual people in our own goals forward as well. And that's where we want to go. But, let me contrast that.
I also want to say that when I started going to guru seminars, Jason is 10 years older than I am. And so he'd lived a different life before I came around, and he had seen his friends go to these boot camps and seminars. And so he had seen his friends sign up and pay big bucks and then not do anything, or lose $50,000 to a traveling guru, or all these different things. So he had that experience, and I hadn't seen that. And so he was also coming at it, not just from his parents, but from what he'd seen his friends go through as well. And so when I was going to boot camps, he was saying, no, I don't want you doing this. I don't want you paying this. I've seen how this ends up. And I was saying, do you even know me? I'm going to be fine. But we had this struggle, and it was not that he didn't have confidence in me. It was that he'd seen this play out before.
And so let me get back to that in a second. Let me pivot back to the way we were raised, right? So you grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, right? Your family has owned your third or fourth generation, I can't remember which one, trucking company on your mom's side, and then on your father's side, always owning different types of businesses and stuff, right? And even though your dad worked on the railroad and had a quote unquote stable type job, he always was involved in buying and selling and earning extra cash and things on the side. So the opportunity to make money was instilled in you and something you saw from a very young age up through the time that you graduated high school, right?
College. I thought everybody always had a side hustle. My parents were always buying cars and lawnmowers and fixing them and flipping them. And so when they did houses, I thought it was just the same thing. I thought everybody did that.
So it's safe to say the concept of residual income seemed like a natural thing to you that everybody did, whereas on the other end of the spectrum, it was a foreign concept to me. So that was one of the things that we figured out.
It was dangerous to him.
Yeah.
I thought it was regular.
Absolutely. It was an unnecessary risk because I had never contemplated the rewards of that. And I had actually worried about the risk associated with that, right? And so we talked about that. Now what Whitney just mentioned is, then fast forward to me personally, okay? When she first started doing these types of things, I was like, hey, you know what? Knock your socks off. Go ahead. Do whatever you do.
No. We can't skip to that.
No, hold on. I'm going to get to it. And so I wasn't as concerned at the time, but Whitney had gone to one of these camps and she'd gotten a lot of this knowledge and she had gotten started, but as a lot of people do, she got stuck. And so she had two paths forward. She could learn the life of hard knocks, view trial and error, and eventually she would have figured it out. I am confident of that. Maybe not at the time, but I am now. But she chose the path to join a coaching program. And by this point in time, she's told the story a million times how Victor Jernigan took the last bit of money she had and said, hey, I'll give you money back guarantee and all this type of stuff to go to this camp. Well, she wanted to do the coaching program and they wanted money up front. Well, at the time, she was tapped out because she'd done a couple of real estate deals with her brother and they didn't have any funds left. So she came to me and she said, I really want to do this, but I need some money. Would it be possible for you to loan me this money and I'll pay you back within 6 months? And I've kicked myself 8,000 times for not doing this. What I should have done is wrote the check and not said a word, but I didn't do that. What I did was I wrote the check, but then I opened my stupid mouth. So I gave her the check, and what I said was, I'm giving you this money because this is what you said you wanted and you need. However, I said, you do realize that you're throwing this money down the toilet, right? And Whitney's like, I don't understand. I said, I've been through this before. I've seen it with other people. You're going to pay this money and you're going to have this experience and they're going to pump you full of all this great things and wonderful. And you're going to have what I call church camp mentality. And if there's any of you that have ever gone 1 week to the beach or somewhere else on a church camp, you know what I'm talking about. You go and you sing songs and you hear wonderful preaching and everything is good and you make a commitment at that camp. You're going to go back and not only are you going to change yourselves, but you're going to change the lives of other people, everybody you encounter, because you're going to deliver the message and things like that. And unfortunately, most of us haven't experienced that. We came back and slowly over the course of a week or a month or a couple of months, things got back to normal. That fire inside of us died. We got back in our daily routines and it just fizzled out. And 6 months from that time, in a lot of cases, I would say most cases, there was never any evidence that we got anything out of that 1 week. And that's what I said. That's what I told her. Again, I didn't mean to do this, but if you decipher and read between the lines, what I said is, here's money, so I'm going to give you what you said you wanted, but just know you're going to fail. I didn't say that. Those weren't the words that came out of my mouth, but it's what I implied. And little did I know, it's exactly what she heard at the time. Now, some of you may not be as fortunate as I am. I've actually learned, and I play this game sometimes. I don't know if you know that I play this game, and I'm giving away my secrets here, so I'm screwing myself, but that's okay. The best way to get Whitney to do something, especially something that she doesn't want to do, is to tell her that she can't do it. And then, we don't drink anymore, but it used to be hold my beer and watch this, right? Now it's, hold my alkaline water or whatever and watch this, right? So she's, she is determined. She accepts it as a personal challenge. And as I sit here today, thank the good Lord for making her that way, because otherwise, no joke, none of us would be sitting here. She and I probably wouldn't have lasted. She definitely wouldn't have, developed the desire to help other people. And so we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. And so, it's something that looking back on it, it's so easy. And it's like, how did I miss that? How did I not know? But I didn't. I didn't know. I think she believes today, and I hope she does, that I would not intentionally hurt her, demean her, hold her back. But I did. That's exactly what I did. And so, the question people always ask me is, okay, I got you. You're very supportive. I get that. But how did you get from where you were to where you are? And, I would love to say that 3 days after I gave her the money and told her, hey, you can't do this, I had a revelation or an epiphany, and I came back and hugged her neck and apologized and got on my knees and begged, and everything was great. But it didn't happen that way, guys. It really didn't. It was a more long, drawn out process. And I think I kept jabbing, right? So I guess you would say when I gave her the check, I kind of stuck the knife in. And over the next few periods of time, based either on when things would come up or whatever, I would kind of jiggle that knife to the point where she just quit including me. Right. So you want to have one of those relationships where your partner is somebody you can bounce things off of. But guess what? Every time you bounce something off of them, if they come back with some slighted way of telling you, I told you so, what's going to happen? You're either going to walk away from them completely, which thank you very much for not doing that, right? Or you're just going to stop including them in that piece of your life. So for a while, Whitney had done just that, right? Whitney had kind of excluded me, but thank God she was dedicated, determined to prove to herself that she could do it, determined to prove me wrong. And so she forged forward, right? So there was a lot of crying in the floor, getting through obstacles, bouncing things off of her coach and helping her do that and good. But I still didn't get it, right? So I still wasn't where I needed to be. And so at this point, she still
paid him back too, just so we're clear. I paid him back by this point in the story.
And so I still wasn't where I needed to be supportive, right? So she's still having to do this without me, right? So that's the main thing that you need to take from this is just because your partner or your spouse or your best friend or your parents or, even your children may not be in your corner now, it doesn't mean that they can't ever be. And that you have to give up hope, right? Because, I wasn't there and I had to get there. And what did it for me was a practical experience. It was a very humbling experience for a couple of reasons. As I started seeing Whitney get some of these, what she calls shut up checks, and she calls them that because of me and a couple of other people that told her she couldn't, right? It was a shut up, I don't want to hear it. Here's proof that I can. And I still didn't understand the concept, right? Because I grew up in a very middle class family where, we didn't have sports cars and things like that, but I've never known what it was like to not have food and not have clothes. Now, I didn't have a lot of designer stuff and we didn't eat filet mignon and drink, fancy wine, but we had food on the table and clothes on our back and a roof over our head. And so did the other people that I grew up with, right? Most of the people were in the same boat we were. And so everybody had a mortgage. And so this concept of creative financing, I understood from a seller perspective who that would be attractive to. But what I couldn't wrap my head around was the buyers. I was like, why wouldn't a buyer, why would you want to do this? Why not go get a mortgage? Either qualify for VA, FHA, or conventional, and just get a mortgage and put all this other confusing crap aside. I don't get it. I don't want to get it. Whatever. And so for a while we were in that, right? I didn't ask much. She didn't say much. Well, as she started getting shut up checks, and to her defense, she didn't rub it in my face. She didn't say, hey, asshole, look at this check. See what I did? But, she would share with me, hey, I had a good week this week. I sold a house. I got upfront money and I'm making X cash flow. I had a good week, right? And so I began to be like, hey, congratulations, good things like that. But that was still as far as it went. And so we were on our way to the lake one weekend. And she said, hey, before we do that, I got a couple of places that I need to go. And she said, I got this house that I need to run by and I need to do a couple of things. And I said, okay. She said, so, ordinarily we take off in the morning and we're swimming by noon or we're fishing by noon. It may be late afternoon, early evening when we get there. Is that okay? I said, yeah, that's fine. We're spending time together. It's great. And as we're in the car riding, she's getting these phone calls. I mean, just one right after another. And I said, why is your phone blowing up? She goes, well, I put out bandit signs. I said, okay. And she goes, people are falling all over themselves for this house. And I said, hey, that's great. That's wonderful, right? So we keep going and going and going. So finally we pull up at the house. From the looks of the outside, the yard, the condition of everything, if it were mine and I had purchased it, I would have either taken a match to it or I would have taken a bulldozer to it. And so any of you that's heard Whitney's, stuff before, have you ever heard her talk about the property line that actually ran through the part of the house or the garage, the outbuilding or whatever? That's actually this property, all right? And so when we got there to the property, I didn't want her to let Abby, the dog, out. It was so bad that I didn't want her to let Abby out. And she said, I said, what are we doing here? She said, well, I got to go inside. I said, what are you talking about? Go inside. She's like, yeah, I got to go in and we got to check it out and do things. I got to update my listing. And so I said, well, I'm not letting you go in there by yourself. So we walked in there. It was by far the worst thing I'd ever seen. They had taken pictures off the wall and you could see the outlines from where people had smoked in there forever. The smell of just not having an AC in there and working and stuff was terrible. Yeah, and here it is on the screen. It was, if you can imagine what it looks like from the outside, it was 15 to 20 times worse on the inside. And so I told Whitney, I said, I got to get out of here. And she goes, okay. So I walked outside and I got in the car. And so probably 5 minutes later, went by, she came out and she got in the car and she said, you ready to go? And I said, yeah. So we took off and we started driving, and I was very quiet. And those of you that know me know that that's, not usually the way I am. And so she goes, what's wrong? And I said, I just had a very humbling experience. And she said, why? And I said, well, when we pulled up, I said that we should bulldoze or burn it to the ground. And, we shouldn't even go in this thing. And then it dawned on me that you have people that are falling all over themselves, trying to be the first one to come and put money down on this house so they can be the first in line because they've told you that that's their dream. I said, this is my trash can, and yet it's somebody else's dream. Now, if you guys had seen the inside of this, you would know that there's no way in the world that a traditional lender would have lent money on this house as collateral. It's not possible. It never would have happened. And so that was the first time that I began to realize that there's a market of people out there that I did not understand because I couldn't relate to, right? I couldn't relate to, although I grew up in a relatively small house, it was a furnished house and we kept it clean. The yard was manicured, things like that. So because I'd never experienced that, I thought that was the norm. I didn't know that there were people out there that didn't have that, and that was their dream. That's what they looked forward to. So that was my first experience within. Whitney's not just doing this for passive income. Of course she is, but this is also about helping people. And so that's been a big lesson for me as I began my investing career and moved forward is, and I've said this 1,000 times, if you're in it only to make money, you will probably fail. If you want to help people and you actually have that mission and then the money's just a tag along, it's just an added benefit, then you're probably going to be successful, right? Because if you make decisions based on financials alone, you're eventually going to make a bad financial decision. That's just the way it works. So anyway, that was my first foray into this. And that was my first clue that, hey, maybe I should take this seriously. Maybe I should stop crapping on it, or maybe I should stop making snide comments, or maybe I should stop putting up these walls that get me excluded from the conversations. Maybe I should sit back and listen, and maybe I could learn a thing or two here. So that was my first clue, and then as we moved on, I began to think about that as a possibility. And I began to learn that, hey, there are self-employed people out there that make a lot of money, but for some crazy reason, the bank believes that they have the inability not to make that money. Now, that sounds kind of crazy to us now, right? That the fact that over 20 million people have filed for unemployment in the last couple of weeks, right? In what we're going through now. It seems like no job's safe, right? And anybody that went through, the downturn and economic loss, around 2007, 2008, they know that too. But we forget, right? We forget very quickly. And so the banks would say, hey, you have a W-2 job, you're not a risk, but hey, you're a business owner. And yeah, you made a lot of money this year, but we don't know if that trend's going to continue. So we view you as risky. We're not going to lend you money on a house, right? And so, again, something I learned, I had no idea because I had never been exposed to that. So another lesson learned for me. So I began to look into it, and I began to think about, do I want to do this? Do I not want to do this? And I was learning a lot, but I still hadn't really dove in very much because, as Whitney told you, I was balancing traveling back and forth between Georgia and Tennessee, and, a long commute to my job, and then, my kids and all these different things. So I was learning and I was getting better, but I still hadn't really dove in yet. All right. So we went along that path for a little while. And then Krispy Kreme happened. And so a couple of factors happened here. Whitney and I took a trip one time to Maine, and I'll never forget when we were packing up to leave, she was very quiet, which is strange for her. And I kept asking her what was wrong, and she kept saying, I'm fine. And every man that's had any kind of experience, I think, with women knows that fine means I'm not fine. But I couldn't drag it out of her, and I didn't want to make her irritated, so I just kind of dropped it. Well, little did I know, she thought I was going to propose on that trip. And then the last night came and I hadn't, so she was a little frustrated. So, that came and went. Fast forward almost another year, right? So another 10 months, I think, fast forward, and we were supposed to go to Biltmore. And, although at the time that was not really my cup of tea, I was looking forward to the two of us spending some time together. And then Whitney informs me that we're going to be delayed in going to Biltmore because she has to go conduct an open house at one of her properties. So rather than being supportive, I took the selfish approach and kind of looked at how that was going to affect me, and it was delaying me from my leisurely things. And I guess I had the right to remain silent, but I didn't have the capability. So I made a couple of snide remarks about it, and as you can imagine, that pressed a few buttons. And so we're in line at Krispy Kreme waiting to get donuts and coffee when the bomb goes off. And so we have a very heated and candid conversation about me not being supportive, and we don't want the same things. And to make a long story short, instead of heading northeast to go to Asheville, or maybe that's directly east, but anyway, instead of heading to Asheville, I found myself an hour and a half later in my car headed south on the way back to Georgia.
That's it. Go back to Georgia and don't ever call me again.
So here I am headed back to Georgia, and things are not good, right? So the next 2 weeks were very little conversation. Not
Hey,
sure that this
also
is the
though,
right thing.
I told him to go to Georgia. I got my donuts. I picked my mom up. We did our open house. My mom and I went to Biltmore. I cried my eyes out at the Lobster Shack, and I was a hot mess. But then, yeah, okay, 2 weeks later.
The other thing is, it was, it was a lot of conversation about is this right for us? Are we right together? All those type of things. A very, very troubling time, right? Obviously, the most troubling that we've had in our relationship, and two of the most troubling weeks I've had, ever. And so it's hard to communicate, even in good times, remotely and stuff like that, much less in troubling times. And so I did a lot of self-thinking, right, about what I had done. And a lot of that was when I realized I hadn't been very supportive and things like that. So, again, our conversations were short and very pointed, and just wasn't getting us anywhere. And so I said, well, it's Hail Mary time and I got to do something else. So I left work in the middle of the day and I got in my car and I drove to Knoxville, didn't tell her I was coming or anything. And I got to the house and she's not there. So this was around probably 6:30, 7 o'clock when I got there. Tried texting her and calling her, no answer, no response to the text. And so 3 hours later of me sitting in the car in the driveway, I see Whitney pull up. And she gets out and she's got this look on her face like, well, well, well. So, the good thing was, she invited me in, we talked, and she said, you can stay today, but you need to go tomorrow. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, this didn't really go like I had planned. But we talked, and that was very important. We talked. And so the next day it was, what are your plans for the weekend? And it was like, well, right now, my plans were to go back to Georgia today, like you told me yesterday. And she's like, well, if you can, maybe you stay the weekend, right? So we began talking about a lot of different things. And, we talked about how she felt. We talked about not only did she not feel supported, she felt downright rejected. And, a lot of that stuff built up, and it built up and built up, and then it just exploded. And so that's when I really started feeling like, a scumbag, that I hadn't been supportive. I wasn't being the partner that she needed to be, and all these different types of things. And so I found out that she was going to an apartment class, which was a mini boot camp in Nashville, right? And so not only did she not invite me, she was going with somebody else.
Y'all listen to this story. This is the total truth here.
And so I was like, okay. Well, at the time, she didn't tell me who. So after a day or two went on, she told me, she said, hey, I feel like I owe you this explanation. And I said, okay. She goes, the person.
Hold on. Okay, y'all remember, I told him to go to Georgia. We are done. This is over. I am over it. I'm making plans. I'm moving on with my life. Next. And then he shows up 2 weeks later with his tail between his legs. I already had plans.
And the person she was going to this class with was a guy. And it was a guy that was interested in real estate investing. And immediately I thought, oh shit. So, we talked or whatever, and naturally, you have questions of, hey, is this just a real estate investor, or is there more to this? And she assures me, no, this is somebody I I don't really know this person very well. We're going, and she assured me, she goes, it's not like we're staying in the same hotel room or anything, right? We're not. He has his own room. I have my room, blah, 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 blah. So I hung around for a few more days. I go back to Georgia, and she goes to this boot camp with this guy in Nashville. And of course, that was a terrible weekend for me because I'm like, hey, is it, what's going on? She's with some other guy. This is very uncomfortable, whatever. But, everything was fine. But at the time, it was like, hey, I've been saying I need to get involved. I was interested. Now is the time to either fish or cut bait. So, to put it a little more bluntly, I either need to shit or get off the pot, right? So when she came back, she said, hey, this mini boot camp was a precursor, right? They're having a full-on, fledged, involved boot camp about apartments. Do you want to go or not? And I said, yes. She goes, well, great. If you want to go, you have to have a partner. That's the way the sign up and stuff works. I said, great, I'll be your partner. She goes, well, I've already got a partner. The guy I went to Nashville with is my partner. But I tell you what, Debbie, that's part of the Knox RIA, is looking for a partner, and you can sign up and be her partner. But I want to be your partner. Well, I've got a partner. Sorry. Okay. So I said, all right, that's fine. Whatever. So she signed me up with Debbie as Debbie's partner. And so, we go to the apartment class. We begin to learn things. We start exploring opportunities. Things are starting to look up here, right? I'm learning. We begin to speak the same language. Hey, at any point in time here, I realized how close I was to losing her. And although I wasn't sure that I had her back, things were looking up. So I started telling myself every day, don't F this up, don't F this up, don't F this up, right? So I consistently would remind myself not to do stupid things. So, over the course of time, things got better. And then, as most people do in their real estate investing careers, I said, well, is jumping into apartments really the right thing? Should I do the house thing and stuff like that? And, we've talked about it 100 times. I don't like the houses. Now, I can tell you this, if we have a downturn in the market, then I can do a lot of subject to deals. I'm going to do it, even though I don't like to, because it's going to be a good opportunity. Good opportunity, number one, to help people. And then number two, it's going to be a good financial opportunity. So I'm going to do it. But day in, day out, I don't like to do it because at the end of the day, I don't like hearing people's stories. I don't care. Grandpa built it with his hands. I don't care. I don't care if Bob the Builder built it or Grandpa Steve. It's to me, it's the same thing. The house is worth what it's worth. Now Whitney loves that. I was telling somebody here, when Whitney comes down here to Florida and stays with me, she walks the neighborhood and stuff. And she'll tell me, she's like, hey, and I'm like, who are you waving to? Oh, well, that's Carol, and she's got a German Shepherd. And oh, over there, Christine and Bob live over there, and they've got 2 weenie dogs. And so she's never met a stranger. She talks to people. She loved it, stuff like that. I'm not. I'm a problem solver. I'm looking for what problem can I solve? What's 5 minutes down the road? That's just my mindset. So for me, the houses is not my first love. I love the multifamily because it's income based, right? I can validate that. There's little emotion, there's little feelings, but
that was his thing, guys. Okay, so houses were my thing, and he came in, he realized that he needed to get on board, he needed to be on the team, and I was kind of tired of houses. I was ready to get into something else, and it just happened to be apartments. So what I'm saying is, and we told you all of this to say there's hope for your man, okay? But he's going to have to find what he wants to do in real estate and what he's gonna like. Some of you, your husbands are gonna love fixing and flipping. Some of them are gonna love analyzing the apartment deals. Some of them are gonna want to be private money lenders. But if you want to be in real estate and you want your husband to be involved, there is a space for him. That's why we talk about all sorts of different investors, because there's a space for him. But there's a thing, something in his head is going to have to click. And I don't want everybody to have to break up with their boyfriend or threaten to divorce their husband or put him on the couch just because his head's not in the game right now. Give him some wins, give him some reasons to cheer for you, and bring him along on your journey. Don't just dump all your problems on him, but bring him on the fun side too, and let him be involved from the beginning on. Now, Jason, I want to switch a little bit because we've only got a couple more minutes with you. We know what happened in your head to really dive in. I basically said, get on or get off. So that was a pretty easy choice. Good choice, by the way. Everybody's cheering for you in the chat. Way to get your head in the game.
Yay!
And you realize it was my dream and that we could blend it together for yours. But over the last year, you've also had a good change of heart and perspective. And I gotta say, you are looking good these days, baby.
Thanks, baby.
So what's happened over the last year? Because, I mean, we've been together for 8 years now, and we haven't always been as good as we are now. One of the things he mentioned earlier, we don't drink anymore, which really cut down on our arguments and on our delayed arguments. So that helped, but it also helped with some mindset stuff that Jason finally got involved with. For my birthday in 18, he bought me a course. I wanted to take a course from a lady that I followed on Instagram, and he said, great, I'll give you that course for your birthday. And I said, okay, great. For your birthday, I'm going to give you Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins does Unleash the Power Within. I told y'all earlier that I hit one of my goals, and to celebrate it, I took my girlfriends, I took my team to Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within in Chicago. And I realized then that I needed to take Jason, but I hadn't had a good opportunity to say, you need to listen to this man, he's smart. Until he bought me a course. So I turned around and bought him a course. And we went to LA in March of 19 to see Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. And that's when Jason had another change.
And it started off really well from the start, right?
No, let me tell you that when you get to Tony Robbins, you check in the night before, you stand in line, thousands of people. It takes an hour or two to get your name badge. It's a thing. Then you show up early the next day and you wait for a couple hours and they get you all pumped up, and it's like a dance party. It's a rave. It's, you know, people having the time of their life. Everybody's sober, and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, and it was supposed to start at 9. And Jason is pissed because he thought if you say you start at 9, you start at 9. Now it's 2 hours later. These people are dancing and having a good time. And I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Jason isn't like a, you know, woohoo, let's party kind of guy. Like that's just not him. And he was pissed. And he looked at me 15 minutes before it started. And he said, I can't believe you brought me here. I can't believe you thought I would like this. This is the worst thing you've ever put me through. And I want to leave now. And I said, hold on. He'll be out in a couple minutes. Let's give him just a minute to see how it goes. So Tony comes out in about 10 or 15 minutes. And the first thing he says, hey, I'm Tony Robbins. Has anybody been drugged here against their will? Anybody not want to be here? And Jason was like, did you tell him to say that? Like, how does he know I don't want to be here? Like, how does he know?
And I put my hand up as high as it would go.
Yeah. Now, by the next time we have a break and the dance party gets started, Tony has, like, I don't want to say beat him up, but he is basically, out of 14,000 people in the room, Tony is talking to Jason the entire time. And Jason is taking it very well. The next time we go on break, Jason is leading the dance party for our section, y'all. I mean, like, he went from, this is an awful experience, I can't believe you thought I would enjoy this, to, oh my God, I get it now. Like, he drank the Kool-Aid, and it's a 4-day event, but we were only there for 3 days. By the end of the 3 days, Jason has goals set, he's got a plan set, he knows what's going on, and he's been a totally different person since March of 19. I tell him that we're on Jason version 8.0, 8.7 now. So tell me about Tony Robbins.
Well, the weird thing is I have always had a pretty high impression of myself. You know, I tell my people here all the time, as a matter of fact, I asked one of my guys here at the plant the other day, I said, listen, if you had to rate yourself as an individual, would you rate yourself as poor, fair, good, excellent, or totally freaking awesome? And he came back and said, I'm probably good. And I didn't really know how to take that. I said, we'll talk about that a little bit later, right? But I've always looked and said, hey, I'm a pretty freaking awesome person, right? It's me. I'm awesome. And so I've kind of always thought about that as, hey, I've always kind of had success. My trajectory has always kind of gone in this direction, although not really fast, but kind of steady. And so I've always felt like I've done a pretty good job of setting expectations and goals and achieving them. And I've never really had a lot of influence in my life for people to try to motivate me and for me to try to look at things. And to be quite honest with you, there have been times in my life when I probably would have told you, well, if you got somebody that has to go to a guru to get them motivated and stuff, then they're probably a pretty weak-minded person and they're probably not going to amount to much. And so I believed that for a long time. As I would see Whitney getting stuck with certain things, and I would see her, oh, well, I'm going to this, and I've got this girl named Delora that does this, and I've got, this thing like that. And, so when I finally bought her that course, I could physically see her growing as a person. And, she tells me, hey, we're going to go to Tony Robbins. And I'm like, if she's going to grow, maybe I should grow. So we're on the plane and I'm excited to get there, and I've seen what it's done for her, and we get there. But the problem is I had set an expectation. I wasn't really open-minded about it. And so when we got there and it was different than what I've expected, I shut down. And when I shut down, I was checked out, right? And thank goodness I got out of it. Otherwise, I would have gotten nothing out of the 4 days we were there. But, once it took me the 15 minutes or so to get turned around and get my head screwed on straight, I looked at it and I said, hey, oh my gosh. And so it's funny that people get different things out of that, because the biggest thing I got out of that was, if I can't take care of myself and my body, and I'm going to treat my body as a toxic garbage dump, then I'm probably going to treat my career, my family member, all those things as a toxic garbage dump as well. And so I said, the first thing I have to do is I've got to get myself right. And so I told Whitney we were going to Texas on vacation not long after that. And I said, when we get back from Texas, I'm going to change. I'm going to do a 10-day cleanse. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to, become a better eater. I'm going to do all that. And once I started doing it, I could not believe how much better I slept, how much better I felt, how much clearer my thinking was. And, over the course of the next year, things started to happen, right? Things started to happen for my company. Things started happening personally for me at the company. We had to displace some people, which meant my role and stuff got bigger. My ownership of the company got bigger, better, all those type of things, right? So it was a domino effect that started with that. And Whitney goes, how did you get a wellness and well-being seminar out of that? I've heard him 3 times now, and I started a dump truck company and a mastermind class, and I forget what the other one was, but she's like, but that's when we're like, hey, each person gets something different from that. And, and that catapulted me into, over the past year, I've listened to a lot of audiobooks. I've read a lot of stuff. Trying to absorb as much knowledge that I can put into practical use as I can. I've been telling people recently, there's a lot of people that are at home right now. And I said, the sad thing is most people are out there, and I'll admit I have watched Tiger King. So yes, I haven't been totally, unplugged from that and everything. But, I said, I hope people aren't spending all of their time watching Netflix and sitting on the couch, because there is so much free content out there that you can absorb. There's so many webinars and things that you can attend. There's so much you can do to better yourself as a person, right? And so even though I got on the career real estate path years ago, it took me up until about 12 to 18 months ago to get on the mindset path, right? And so am I still where I need to be? No, but I'm a lot clearer in what I need to do. And this is affecting everything. It's not just affecting me. It affects my relationship with Whitney, and that's been much healthier. It affects how I look and guide my children, which is a much more positive thing. So I know we're running up on time here, Whitney, but I want to say this, all right? The bottom line is, as you go through this, you need somebody to be supportive, right? Whether that be a fellow FDDFer, whether it be your cousin, your landlord, your aunt, your uncle, your spouse, whatever. So don't give up on that really important person in your life that you want them to be that. Don't give up on them, but also don't force them immediately to try to be that. And I think if Whitney and I look back on that, that led to that Krispy Kreme moment is, you know, I did a lot of things I shouldn't have done, but she also had that expectation that she was trying to force me to be that when I wasn't at that point yet. So, you know, I know I spent an hour explaining a lot of stuff there to you, but it's important to understand that it's not all unicorns, rainbows, motherhood, and apple pie. You know, it's a lot of work. Not only, you know, the work you put into the procedural things, but emotionally and mentally and all those type of things within yourself and within your relationship. So,
and I also want to applaud everybody for being here today, because you could have chosen to watch Tiger King, but you're here with us, and that is a great step. You're definitely on the right path. Lots of people are going to come out of this in the same position that they went into this, and y'all are going to be ahead for being here. So great job on that. Thank you, honey. I love you so much. And if anybody has any questions for Jason, he's in First Little and Fast if you have any questions for him. And I think he's in the Plus group also. And absolutely. I want to say that the mastermind this year, everybody in the mastermind, I've shut it down now, but everybody that's in the mastermind, we all got a ticket to Tony Robbins. We're going to go to Chicago in July to the Tony Robbins event. And if you're in Plus, I have extra tickets. You could buy a ticket to go with us in July to Chicago, assuming we can still do that. But if you're in Plus, you can buy one of the tickets. If you're in the mastermind, I've given you a ticket. So Jason's going, and I think I've got a couple other people that are going, but I've got 10 tickets. So whoever claims them first can have them. So if anybody wants to go with us, if you want to take your spouse, then you can get them a ticket too. It's fine. But it changed my life in 2018. I quit drinking at the Tony Robbins event. I started the dump truck company while we were there. Jason set a goal to lose some weight. He did. He's worked on his mindset. He also became a private money lender for the first time after Tony Robbins. He got promoted to president of the company he's working at, which gave him the ownership stake. So like this mindset stuff, this goal setting stuff, these events that you go to, it's amazing. And it'll continue for years and years and years. And I want to applaud y'all for investing in yourself today and tomorrow, but also in the future. Those of you that are in First Little and Fast, you're in FDDF Plus, like that's what you need. You got to work it. And like Jason said, it's not easy. You got to work it, but then you've got it forever and ever. Amen. So thank you so much for being here. I love you to pieces.
Thank you. First of all, I love you so much too. You're amazing. Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to kind of humiliate myself. You know, and people have asked me before, why would you do that? Why would you tell that story, which, you know, I don't know if you know or not, makes you look like a first-rate jerk. And it does. And I get that. But what we said before is it's all about helping people, right? So if me telling you how unsupportive and stuff I was prevents even one person from having to go through that, then it's all worth it. So Thank you for being here. Thanks again, baby, for having me. I'm sorry I can't be there, but guess what?
Next week.
Only a few more days. So.
Yay. So if you don't know, Jason still lives in Georgia. I live in Tennessee. We tried to live together for a year, and it was just crazy. But he works in Florida. So he lives in Georgia, works in Florida. I live in Tennessee, work in Tennessee. So we still have our long distance relationship, but I bought a house for us in February, and we have plans in the next couple of years to be able to move in together and live together and actually be like a proper husband and wife.
Can't wait.
I'm super excited. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing that, because I think, okay, so you look like a jerk, but I did some things bad then too. And I'm not completely innocent of all these things. And it's important for women to know that whatever they're going through, other women have been through it or are going through it again. Also, not again, but going through it also with them. Yes, absolutely.
And there are still moments, right, when I am probably focused on other things and not quite as supportive or attentive or whatever as you would like me to be. Once you get there, again, it's not always just, hey, we keep getting better and better. There's still little blips on the radar and things like that. But, but having that relationship and having that shared passion, that shared vision and things like that, makes it so much easier than it used to be, right, babe?
Yes, absolutely. And somebody asked in the chat, how do they get involved in First Deal Done Fast? You can join First Deal Done Fast and get into the flock with us. We'd love to have you. Go to firstdealdonefast.com or send me a message and we can hop on the phone and make sure that's the right fit for you. You can email info@whitneynicely.com. We'll check and make sure that's the right fit for you and what you want, what your goals are, but everything's on firstdealdonefast.com. And I think there's 14 of us in here right now, and probably 11 of y'all are already in the flock. So most everybody here is already in First Deal Done Fast and invested and ready and going through everything we got over there. So thank you again, honey. I appreciate you. I'll see you Saturday.
Thanks, baby. I love you.
I love you too. Bye, babe.
Bye.